You've heard about intuitive eating and you're wondering if it's a right fit for you. You might have seen some controversial things either on social media or even Googling. And today I want to help you understand what intuitive eating is all about and what you can expect from the beginning of your journey until you are an intuitive eater, so that you can decide if it's a good fit for you. Let's dig deep into what you can expect in the journey to becoming an intuitive eater so you have a better idea of how quickly you're going to start seeing changes with your relationship with food and your body. On this channel, you'll learn the science behind why you overeat and take home tangible strategies that you can use to improve your relationship with food and your body. If this sounds like just what you need, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell in the top right corner so you never miss a video. I publish new videos every Wednesday. I'm Meredith MacKenzie of Parallel Wellness. I'm a registered clinical counselor and intuitive eating coach. I've helped hundreds of women who are struggling with poor body image and loss of control with food to become more attuned to their body's hunger and fullness cues so that they can have a better relationship with food and their bodies, find freedom from food, and to go on and fully live their lives. Intuitive eating is a practice and a process, and this is something that can be pretty frustrating for people as they're starting their intuitive eating journey, especially if you have a history of dieting. So taking dieting, for example, when you start a diet, you're given this external plan, the number of calories you should be eating, types of foods you should stay away from, and it's really something that's decided on your behalf by whatever, the makeup of that diet is. And it feels easy in the beginning, right? You're given this plan, you just follow the directions and you start to see results. That is, until it doesn't seem so easy anymore and it gets difficult because dieting doesn't work. And this external plan doesn't work because you're an individual person and you have your own things going on and your body is going to respond in its own individual way. So the diet plan doesn't end up working in the long term, and that externalized plan doesn't work. Now, if you want to understand the science behind why diets don't work, I did a video on this a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to link it right here if you'd like to go back and watch that one first. On your journey to becoming an intuitive eater, there are 5 phases that you're likely to experience along the way. First, recognize if you are even watching this video and considering intuitive eating as a process for yourself, you've already made a giant leap in your own journey from being really entrenched in diet culture to considering becoming an intuitive eater. You might recognize this for yourself in the past or for anybody that you know in your life currently who is really deeply entrenched in diet culture, that when you're dieting, you very much believe that the diet is going to be the solution to the concerns that you have about your body. You're very much invested in following that diet to a T and feel as though there's something wrong with you or your body when you're not able to, make any changes the way you expected. And it can be incredibly difficult to shift our mindset from this place when we believe that diets are the answer. Personally, I vividly can remember myself circa 2002 when I was deep in my own disordered eating. And I, doubled down and defended my overexercise and my food restriction to a friend. And there was going to be no convincing me at that point in time that dieting wasn't the answer, that I shouldn't be dieting or engaging in these types of behaviors. I was just so set and focused on this. So the first phase in becoming an intuitive eater is realizing that diets are not the answer and that diet culture doesn't work, and kind of coming awake to all of this experience and just being done with dieting altogether. At this point, you're starting to have a greater awareness that the behaviors that you were engaging in previously when you were subscribed to diet culture just weren't working. That dieting is this never-ending cycle of restricting yourself, holding yourself back, and really punishing yourself for how your body looks or how you believe your body should be looking and it isn't, and then returning to a normalized way of eating where sometimes you might even react with binge eating or overeating and feeling incredibly hard on yourself because you felt like you failed, that you've undone all the work that you previously put in, and that is not a cycle that you want to continue, and that you recognize how damaging that was for you. Now, this first phase of becoming an intuitive eater can be really difficult and frustrating, and just there's a lot of growing pains within this phase because you have the intention to want to start to change. You want to have a better relationship with food in your body. You know that, or you expect or hope that that is a possibility, but you're not there yet. And that can be really hard because you want this so much, but you don't have the tools for yourself. A big piece of this is that when you engage in dieting, you actually have to, in order to do the diet, to follow that external plan, you have to turn off your awareness to your hunger and fullness because you're not eating according to what your body wants anymore. You're eating according to this diet plan. So you've probably lost touch with your biological hunger and fullness cues. It's just something that's not turned on or that you're not tuned into at this time. And that is a process in itself to reattune to those cues. So you might be noticing that you eat out of comfort or you eat in response to stress. And it's harder for you to know when you're full or when you should be eating ahead of time so that you're not binging eventually. And it can just feel really messy and feel like a lot of things are happening in response to emotion rather than because your body needs it. And so that's where I think a lot of the clients that come to me feel really confused because they believe that they're addicted to food because the food is something that they're driven to and that they want to eat, and they feel like they're out of control when they do have the food in front of them. Whereas the truth is that they just aren't in touch with their body's cues anymore. And when they don't have that awareness or that attunement to their body's cues, it's harder to know when your body needs what it needs and when it's finished. So this is an early stage. This is the first phase of first knowing on a cognitive kind of mental level, I'm done with diets that are not for me anymore. But your body isn't there yet. And so it's going to take some time to catch up. And there's a lot of learning that still has to happen. The next phase of becoming an intuitive eater is not without its growing pains as well. And as much as it can be really challenging for the clients that I work with to be in this phase, it is a really beautiful experience from my perspective, and getting to witness them start making these changes for themselves and start pushing themselves into becoming an intuitive eater who is more in tune with their body. So this is a phase of, being very conscious, almost hyper conscious of everything, because like I said, if you don't have awareness of your hunger and fullness and the needs of your body, then you have to start practicing those things. So you're looking for those hunger cues, you're looking for those fullness cues, your emotional needs that come up, your taste preferences, your textures, and all the satisfaction that you get from food. Because unfortunately, diet culture really undoes a lot of those experiences. And I'm going to be doing a video on this topic in the future. If you're interested, let me know in the comment section down below. But there are so many different levels to our satisfaction factor with food that it deserves its own video all on its own. It's one of my favorite topics. Now, can you remember when you first learned to drive, if you're a driver? There is so much hyper consciousness that it's almost exhausting to just leave a parking lot or to drive around a parking lot in your car for the first time. You're checking your mirrors, you're checking the side mirrors, especially if you learn to drive on a non-automatic car. There's so much, gear shifting that you have to be aware of. You're looking around to make sure that you're not going to hit any pedestrians or other cars, dogs that are running out. There's so much awareness that you have to, suddenly put yourself into, that it's exhausting, it's overwhelming. And that is exactly, unfortunately, part of the process of becoming an intuitive eater, to have that hyper consciousness, because you're questioning and you're learning and you're curious and you want to have that awareness and connection with your body that you've lost touch with. And so it definitely takes time, because now if you look back, if you're an experienced driver, it's second nature to you. You just kind of go with the flow. You know what you're doing. You do all those things without having a lot of conscious thought about them. They just happen naturally. And that is what it'll eventually be like for you when you are an intuitive eater. But this phase takes time, and it's all a part of the process. Another important step in this conscious awareness and exploration of pleasure within becoming an intuitive eater, the second phase, is that making peace with food can feel so incredibly scary. So if you've read anything about intuitive eating, or you've started to explore it yourself and you're thinking, no, I can't do that. That sounds terrifying, to just give myself free reign to eat anything I want and just let myself have all those things that I've restricted before. That can feel really scary. So definitely, if you are new to intuitive eating and you're trying to take this on yourself, go at your own pace. There is no deadline for when you need to get there. And because it is a process and because it is a practice, it's okay to just take little baby steps and to experiment and, see how the outcome is. That's just fine the way it works. You don't have to be, completely all in all at once, because that would be really overwhelming. You have to think, if you've been terrified of doing something over a long period of time, or you've been really rigid and restrictive with your food rules, it is going to take time to feel at peace with eating all these different foods. One of the biggest surprises for myself when I was becoming an intuitive eater was recognizing that you start to, dig into what your true food preferences are. Because most people who struggle, say, with binge eating or overeating or this like back and forth with diet culture, is that you feel like you shouldn't be eating certain foods, and they all go in this do not eat category. But then when you let yourself, you just go hog wild on it and you just let yourself have all those things. And so in that moment, it can feel like, yes, this is what I truly want. But if you really, consider food texture, flavor, temperature, how it makes you feel afterwards. There are so many other factors to food that when you really start exploring your true food preferences, you might find that you don't actually enjoy those foods as much as you thought you did. And becoming a little infamous now for myself of describing my love-hate relationship with Taco Bell. Taco Bell used to be my go-to food for whenever I needed something on a cheat day. And to this day, I can eat it and I'm like, just doesn't taste good. It doesn't have that same satisfaction factor that it used to have. And this is not to knock on Taco Bell or anybody who loves Taco Bell. It's just my personal food preference. And now I still love tacos. I love Mexican food, especially Baja style tacos. But I won't get them at Taco Bell. I'll get them somewhere else because that is what, meets all of my needs in terms of my true food preferences. You might also find that in this process of making peace with food and allowing yourself to eat these things that you haven't allowed yourself to eat before, or try not to restrict your portions, that you tend to eat bigger portions than you were previously, or even bigger portions than your body necessarily needs. So you find that you allow yourself to eat and you end up eating past fullness and it feels uncomfortable. And so many of my clients will say, I did this wrong. I'm not doing intuitive eating right. I ate too much and I went past my fullness and I wasn't listening to my body. And I just have to say, you did it though. You put yourself out there, you ate something that you weren't going to eat before, you were listening more to your body, and it takes time. If I could just put a big banner over this entire video, it takes time, and it is going to be a process for your body to recognize when it's full, as well as for yourself to kind of attune to that and be able to respect the cues that your body is giving you. Along with this, you're also trying to figure out, I've got this cue for hunger, but is this a biological need? Is my body needing nourishment right now? Or is this an emotional need? And that's not to say that eating for emotional needs is wrong or that you should never do that, but it is a process as well of recognizing that there are different reasons why we have cravings for food and that we want food in certain situations. Because sometimes, and this will be the process that you end up going through in becoming an intuitive eater, there's other things we can do to meet those emotional needs. And then maybe you eat something as well because it feels good and it's nice and it's an experience. But starting to build that attuneness or your awareness of why am I eating in this moment? And finally, probably my favorite part of this entire phase of intuitive eating, you're repairing your relationship with yourself and learning to trust yourself. So many clients that I work with will say, I can't trust myself around food. I'm the one that's messing up. I don't have the willpower. I'm the one that, promises these things to myself and then I go totally against it and I overeat. And that can really damage your relationship with yourself over time and how much you are able to trust yourself. And this is, again, a part of the process of intuitive eating to get back to that point of being like, you know what? I'm able to trust myself. I know that I can listen to my body. I know that I can respond to it in a way that's going to be respectful and it's going to meet its needs. And there's nothing that I've done wrong in that situation. So that's a really beautiful part of this second phase of becoming an intuitive eater. The third phase of becoming an intuitive eater is something called crystallization. And this is the aha, I've got it moment almost for so many of the clients that I work with, because You're finding that the hyper-consciousness that you needed previously in order to attend to your hunger and fullness cues and emotions and all the little pieces that were going on in order to start changing your relationship with food have shifted, and they're becoming more fluid. It's starting to happen without you needing to think about it as in depth and constantly. The other really, pleasant experience of this phase is that you're starting to not have those constant food thoughts anymore. You've made peace with food to the extent where you can have whatever you want whenever you want it, and you don't feel that urgency anymore to have that food because you can have it whenever and it's not a big deal. And so this is a really joyous moment for so many of the clients I work with because you're able to start bringing certain foods into your home and feel comfortable with having them there. You don't worry that you're going to lose control and binge unexpectedly, and it's just a really calming sort of experience for a lot of people in this crystallization phase. However, because you're still learning and because, again, this is still a process, you might find that you still have that, drive or tendency or urge to eat foods that were previously on your do not eat list because you're still exploring that. You're still, testing out, okay, was this a preference? Do I like this on special occasions? Do I like this because of the environment of people I'm with? What is it and what is going on with these foods that I'm eating and craving? And so you might find that you're still gravitating more towards some of those, previously forbidden foods. But at the same time, and this is another really pleasant shift that happens for people in the crystallization phase, you're starting to separate yourself and put that previous goal of wanting to lose weight in the background, which you think about this is already at the third phase. How challenging is that to know that you're making all of these changes and you're trying to make peace with food by allowing yourself to eat different things and eat in larger quantities than you previously did while simultaneously, continuing to have this goal to lose weight or desire to lose weight, even though you're thinking that shouldn't be my goal, but I still feel like that's my goal and I wish that I could still lose weight. And so it's really nice once you get to the crystallization phase and you're starting to feel less attached to that, need or desire to lose weight, and it's distancing itself from you. Now, I'm really curious if you have tried to, break up with diets in the past and you've tried to start this journey of intuitive eating for yourself, but it just hasn't worked. What were the stumbling blocks for you? Let me know in the comment section down below because I'm super curious about this process for people. The fourth phase of becoming an intuitive eater is awakening the intuitive eater. And this, again, it just gets more and more pleasant from here because you're starting to be more natural and smooth again with all of those intuitive eating skills. They just come to you naturally. You're not overthinking them. You're really attuned to your hunger and fullness cues, and you're starting to not have those intense urges to not only eat the forbidden foods, but the portion sizes are getting more in line with what your body really wants and needs in those moments, and you're just starting to really embody what it is to be an intuitive eater. This is also a point where your desire for certain foods shifts to more nutrient-dense foods. So everyone always asks, how is it possible that as an intuitive eater, you're allowing yourself to eat anything and everything, but you still think I'm going to be, eating in a healthful way? Yes. And that happens later in the phase, and that's why it's so hard and so overwhelming for so many people. But it happens in this fourth phase when you're awakening your intuitive eater and you actually have those drives and desires for nutrient-dense foods. And finally, another huge shift when you're starting to awaken your intuitive eater is all of those emotions that you've been opening yourself up to and trying to, start to have awareness for that have maybe been causing you or triggering you into overeating in the past. They start to feel less intense. They start to feel more manageable. So you don't feel the same desire or necessity to push them away and stuff them away and just avoid them. Instead, you're able to recognize them and be present with them and cope with your emotions in a more effective way, which is a really helpful point in becoming an intuitive eater because then you're not leaning on food as much to emotionally manage. Now, the fifth and final phase of becoming an intuitive eater, treasuring the pleasure, is what we all aspire to. It's what you're wanting at the end of the road. And I want to say from personal experience, it's absolutely possible to get to this point. And this is where the intuitive eating principles are completely natural to you. You are very attuned to your body's hunger and fullness, so that when you sit down for a meal, you're able to, choose to eat that meal and choose specific foods that are going to meet your nutritional needs and your health needs for your body, but also it's satisfying. And then you're able to stop and listen to when your body's feeling full and not continue without feeling as though you're restricting yourself in any way. You're also making choices about nutrition in a varied way that is very informed and allied with your intuitive eater. So you're not doing things out of feeling like you should be eating these specific foods, but because you genuinely choose and want to eat those foods. Also, movement has brand new meaning. So this is, again, a whole recovery process and relationship process of starting to relate to movement and exercise and food in a whole new way, in that it doesn't have those same triggering properties to it, and that you enjoy movement in a new way without feeling guilt if you're not exercising or if you're not moving at a certain intensity that you think you should. Again, that desire or that goal for weight loss is very, very distant from you at this point. We live in a culture where thinness is going to be idolized for I don't know how much longer. I wish I could change the world, but unfortunately those messages are going to continue to be a part of our society for the foreseeable future. And it's going to be hard for you not to be impacted by those. But as an intuitive eater, you're able to say, that's not for me. And you can truly say, I am free from diet culture. It does not affect me. I know that it exists, but it's not a part of how I evaluate myself or how I evaluate others in my life. And I don't allow other people to evaluate me according to those rules either. So this is what the process of becoming an intuitive eater looks like. And it's very different than what you might have experienced previously on your diet. Again, diets have you follow this external plan, and intuitive eating is the complete opposite of that, where you are working very hard at attuning to your body, learning about yourself, trusting yourself, allowing yourself to eat anything and everything. But again, through the process of listening to what your body really wants, you do make those choices differently. And so it's an internal process. The other thing is it takes time. Compared to diets that you can start seeing results in weight loss rather quickly and what's happening and shifting on the scale, intuitive eating is an inside job. You're not going to be seeing it on the external side of things, possibly for a long time. And so that is a big part of the process, but definitely a process worth going through. So I'm curious, if you're watching this and you are currently on your own intuitive eating journey, what phase are you currently in? Let me know in the comment section down below, because I'd love to hear about how you're experiencing your intuitive eating journey so far. Now, I have a freebie for you. If you want to understand more about, the possible reasons that you might be overeating and how your habits might be influencing that, I have a quiz. It's in the description box down below. You can take it and learn more about yourself and what specific areas of intuitive eating might help you to make those shifts and improve your relationship with food and your body. If you are now curious about intuitive eating and if intuitive eating could be a fit for you in your process of shifting from a place of binge eating and the binge eating cycle that has been really overwhelming for you, I am excited to announce that the doors are officially open to my intimate group program, One Body to Love. This is a small virtual group program for women who struggle with overeating and binge eating, emotional eating, who want to find freedom from food and have a better relationship with their bodies and find body acceptance and freedom from food. So if this sounds like something that you are ready for, click the link in the description box down below to book a call with me. And if doors have closed by the time you're watching this, go ahead and click anyways and put yourself on the wait list for our next round. If you found this video helpful, let me know by giving a like and subscribing to the channel so you don't miss a video that I publish every Wednesday. Now go ahead and share this video with a family member or friend or anyone who you think could benefit from learning more about intuitive eating and what the process of becoming an intuitive eater is like.